I'm going to talk to Glenn Greenwald tomorrow on the Young Turks about the Russia investigation. And one of his top points has been, well, if the Mueller investigators disagreed with Barr, did say something about it. When they disagreed with BuzzFeed, they said something about it. So since they haven't said anything about it, well, then the Mueller team must agree with Barr's summary of it, which Trump is calling a total exoneration.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second before you give the update to the story? To be fair, like we've made a similar point, right? Not when it comes to the overall assessment that came from Barr, but specifically when it comes to the fact that no one seemed to disagree with Barr's interpretation or his interpretation that Trump had been cleared of collusion during the campaign.
Yeah, well, now they have. Okay, so that just happened just now. New York Times reporting, I'll read you the first paragraph and then talk about some of the details. Some of Robert Mueller's investigators have told associates that the Attorney General William Barr failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry and that they were more troubling for President Trump than Mr. Barr indicated, according to government officials and others familiar with their simmering frustrations.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's fascinating how everything has kind of like developed since the Barr report. So at first, Donald Trump was asked during a press briefing whether or not he would be comfortable with the release of the report. And he said that he was comfortable with the release of the report. And then this morning, Vanity Fair had a piece about how Donald Trump is fighting the release of the report. And he seems to be terrified about it. And I couldn't understand why. I thought, oh, maybe there's a few embarrassing things about him in there, but why? I mean, you say it's a total exoneration, then let's just release it and then we're done with it.
If somebody had accused me of something terrible and then a report came out, a 400-page report came out that was in his words, quote, a complete and total exoneration, I would want it out immediately. I'd be like, I told you I was innocent, complete and totally, get that report out immediately, go. Redact any kind of classified information, but we gotta get it out there, All of a sudden, Rudy Giuliani on TV today, we can't put the report out, we can't put it out, well, all of a sudden, why? Why can't you put it out? Okay, so look, I'm not trying to pick on Glenn, I agree with him on a lot of things, and again, we still haven't seen the report. A lot of people making conclusions about it before seeing it. But I will say, like I said before, I said during, I said after, that I actually don't think the election was the biggest deal. And maybe the damaging stuff is in the obstruction charge. Not maybe, obviously, that's a lot of it because Mueller said that he didn't want to make a decision on that, but there was significant evidence of obstruction of justice. So Barr looked at it and was like, no, there isn't. Okay, he's free and clear to go. Okay, the guy who wrote a memo out of nowhere when he wasn't a government official, William Barr, wrote a memo as a private attorney saying that the Mueller report is outrageous, et cetera, et cetera. Now he says, I've been friends with Mueller for 30 years. Now, look, to be fair to Barr, he said Mueller's a straight shooter even before the report came out. And Mueller actually worked underneath Barr when Barr was Attorney General a long time ago. For another president, Mueller was the head of the criminal division, and so they have been working together. But remember, they're both Republicans. So
no, it's all. How many?
13? 19 angry Democrats.
19. Like I feel like the number always changes.
Yeah, I know. Look, again, there's no logical consistency at all. So Donald Trump said it's a witch hunt, it's a hoax, it's 19 angry Democrats who targeted me. Then he comes out and says it's a complete and total exoneration. What kind of a witch hunt do people get together and go, let's all gather up some witches so we can exonerate them? Okay, that's not really how a witch hunt works. So anyway, I know that they don't value logic, but what has happened here is very similar to what has happened in politics for the last 40, 50 years, which is you've got a Republican and a Republican light, right? William Barr is an extremist Republican, and Robert Mueller is Republican light. I mean, I say he's Republican light, but he's been a Republican his whole career. There's like never a Democrat, never even a hint of a Democrat, but a good enough stand-in for the Democratic Party because they're Republican light. And so during that role, Robert Mueller basically has been like, oh, okay, Barr, you characterize it any way you like. And apparently, I don't know if it's Mueller, I doubt it. It looks like it's some of the other investigators going, wait a minute, that's not what the report said. So now Barr comes out and talks to the New York Times, and his team is like, oh, I am shocked and chagrined. I can't believe the Mueller team would do this to us. Oh, I get it. You mischaracterize their report so that they can at some point go, God damn it, are you ever gonna release it? That's not what we said. And then you turn around and go, I'm aggrieved. I'm the victim. I'm the victim. Oh, you know what? This is getting political. Hilarious. Okay, no, it gets funnier. He says again in the same New York Times report, he talks about how, well, look, I didn't tell people about all the different things that Donald Trump had done wrong. Why? Because I learned from the mistakes James Comey made towards poor Hillary Clinton. Oh, come on. Does anybody believe this? Really? Like, you were so concerned about what happened to Hillary Clinton. So he's like, look, we learned from the Comey incident that if you're gonna say that you're not gonna charge anybody with a crime, you should never talk about what they did, because he says they will not have a chance to have a day in court. So we have to hide the evidence against them. Oh, come on. So, who in their right mind believes this?
Hold. So now William Barr, in response to this New York Times report, is essentially conceding that he held back in informing the public about all the negative things that it says about Trump.
No question.
So he's saying it himself. He's conceding.
And in fact, he came out, and this is hilarious too. Even before this New York Times story came out, he does this summary going, yeah, let's wrap this thing up. Trump's awesome and not guilty, just like I knew before I ever read the Mueller report, and that's why I got this job. So then when the media says, oh, Barr says it's an exoneration and Trump says it's an exoneration, Barr came out and said, well, the media is really mischaracterizing me. I didn't say everything that was in the report.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was strange, but I just really didn't want to keep talking about this issue, so I ignored it. But
yeah, so no, he's saying, well, look, I'm hiding the evidence. Now, he doesn't use the word hiding, obviously, but he says because I literally, it's now in the New York Times story talking about how, oh, well, if you reveal the bad evidence against someone who's not going to go to court, that's unfair to them. Like James Comey was unfair to poor Hillary Clinton, revealed all the evidence against her, and said that it was the wrong thing to do while not charging her. We learned our mistake from that, so we're not gonna do that anymore. And so, look, he says he's gonna release it by mid-April. He says it'll be redacted for classified information. Now, here comes another interesting part. Now, first of all, if it was just classified information that had nothing to do with the substance, sure. I mean, I think they should redact classified information, no problem, right? But obviously, the Mueller investigators think they might be doing more, because remember, Barr and Mueller team are working together now on the redactions. Now, if things were going smoothly, you wouldn't see this story. But obviously, things are not going smoothly. So Mueller team is probably saying, no, don't redact that. That's core evidence, our core conclusions. Barr's like, yeah, no, the public doesn't need to see that. And so there's another really important part of this story. It turns out that the Mueller team wrote a summary, and they naively thought that Barr would do the right thing and release their summary.
We live in America. Don't ever assume that people are gonna do the right thing.
No, he's a hack who was put in by Trump because he publicly declared him not guilty before he saw any of the evidence. So you thought that an extreme right winger would be fair and release your summary? Barr says, well, I mean, it could be classified information in that summary. Really, the 19 investigators, seasoned investigators of Mueller's team, don't know what classified information is. They accidentally put classified information in the summary. That's nearly impossible to believe.
Can we just quickly address how insanely weak and vulnerable to corruption our democratic process and system is? Because in any other administration where the attorney general is not supposed to be the personal attorney for the president of the United States, maybe you could say, all right, well, the attorney general is gonna do the right thing. This person wasn't chosen specifically because they wrote this pro-Trump memo. But in this case, the reason why William Barr was chosen by Donald Trump was because of his stance on the Mueller investigation. And so to just trust him to do the right thing in putting out an accurate summary, I think is naive, to say the least. But what I wanna know is, at what point, is there ever gonna be a point where we have an actual independent body, or maybe even a bipartisan body, that puts together a summary that looks at the full content of this?
No way. That's no.
Why don't we have that though?
No. But there is. Look, we do have that. It's called the special counsel. So they and not only are they independent, they're not even bipartisan. They're led by Republicans. So a Republican,
but I think that's
Robert Mueller puts together the report. It's already filtered through a Republican lens, then it goes through a hardcore Republican lens of William Barr, and now we got Giuliani and Trump saying, wait, we didn't mean release it, don't release it. That's a third layer of Republican extreme. And they won't even put out the summary. That's why they're obviously now going to the New York Times going, we wrote a summary, he won't release the summary. So now they're worried that the public perception is going to harden that the report completely exonerated Trump when it didn't. Now, if you remember on the day one when I said I concede nothing, and people are like, oh, come on, it's already over, man. Trump's handpicked attorney general said it, so it must be true. I said Trump and his right-wing and left-wing supporters, what did I say? I said they're Leon Lett, and they're carrying that ball really loosely before they get into the end zone, and Don Beebe's gonna come and knock it out.
I don't know what any of that means.
Okay, so now, for all the people in the mid-high stepping over like, yes, my friend Trump is innocent, I knew it. Okay, I know I'm being unfair, okay? Some of the folks on the left don't think Trump is their friend, I totally get it. But they were very enthusiastic to show how innocent he was in this case without reading the report. For all the people who said, oh, let's well, hey, you can't say that stuff, you haven't read the report yet. And then without reading the report, they all jumped up and down about how great and wonderful it was that Trump is so-called innocent, right? Now, I'm gonna tell you what I've said from day one, which is, I think that I'm very likely when it comes out, given what we know publicly, I'm going to probably be very disappointed that Mueller did not look into Trump's business dealings. If I'm right about that and he didn't look into his business dealings, this report is 400 pages of like, really middling stuff. It's not, even now, like I don't want the other side then coming in and high stepping. Oh, we knew Trump was guilty. Hold on. You didn't read the report. None of us read the report. None of us even read the real summary of the report. So to me, all the social media, I mean, I've said it 1,000 times, all this social media, Russia interfering in our elections, yes, but we interfere in other people's elections. You think other countries don't interfere in elections? Look at what Saudi Arabia, Israel, etc. do every single day regarding our elections. Look at what we do with Venezuela's elections. I think that that's a small part of Trump's corruption. The mother lode isn't the money laundering before. The mother lode is in what in the world is he talking about with the Russians, whether he's Eric Prince going to Seychelles Island and meeting with them secretly. If there's nothing untoward, why are they meeting secretly in the middle of the ocean and on the secret meetings that Trump is having with Putin without even an American translator, etc. Those to me are the real deals. So when we get the report, if he didn't talk about those, it's still going to be quote unquote disappointing. But it's disappointing to me not because he didn't get Trump. I didn't want him to get Trump. I wanted him to find out the facts. It's disappointing because he only covered a tiny window of time, which then limits, and that's why Trump was high stepping. Like Barr and everybody else is like, look, we put out the skewed summary, but hey, be cool about the high stepping, right? But Trump was high stepping because he's like, he didn't cover my financial ties to the Russians. What an idiot. That's what he was deathly afraid of. That's why he did the obstruction of justice in the first place.
And I think it's part of the reason why he refuses to release tax returns and gets very uncomfortable. I've noticed that Trump seems to lash out the most when there's talk about his financial history.
Of course.
That is, and so yeah, look, I agree with you in that's the most important thing to focus on. I was also disappointed that Mueller didn't focus on that based on what we know so far, okay? But from what I've read, those questions were then outsourced to other investigators.
Well, no, not necessarily the money laundering. I've not seen that anywhere in the press.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about money laundering either, but look, we'll see what happens with Congress, but they have subpoenaed Donald Trump's tax returns, and there are multiple investigations that are ongoing. One of the issues, and I think that this is part of the failure of the mainstream media, has has been the fact that they only focus on the collusion and the special counsel investigation. That's all you hear about. But all of the other investigations that are happening right now are much more important. So the issues involving his financial history, the Trump charity that Donald Trump used to enrich himself, the campaign finance issues when it comes to the hush money payments, those are separate investigations that are still being looked into.
That's why I get frustrated by some very few people on the left who are treating this as if it is a total exoneration, because it makes it seem like, oh, the Republicans are right, you shouldn't investigate anything about Donald Trump. When there's criminality out in the open, wide open, that you can see with the naked eye, which then, look, we might get a worst case scenario here where the facts about collusion during the election might not be that convincing, and that's why Mueller chose not to indict or even recommend anyone else indicting, right? But the Adam Schiffs of the world will come out and say, no, it's about the election and Hillary would have won, blah. Oh, that's disastrous. Shut up about that, okay?
Yes.
So, and then you have the Democrats still going down the wrong path. You have the Republicans high stepping. It's a total mess, right? It's very likely, as we can see from the things that are already being said publicly, it is not at all a total exoneration. And the main deal is not about the election. So, and if
they have, sorry to interrupt you, Cenk, but yeah, Democrats need to freaking move away from that message because it is not a winning message. I think that they're actually helping Trump quite a bit with the upcoming election. If they keep like hanging on to this notion that there was collusion during the election, like they gotta let that go. They need to, first of all, first and foremost, they need to focus on the issues. And I know that establishment Democrats don't want to focus on the issues because it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them have to put a mirror up to themselves and look at the same corrupt issues that they're guilty of, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, they're giving him a gift, and I don't even know if they realize it yet, but they need to like move away from that message. You want to focus on his conflicts of interest. I think that that's legitimate. You want to focus on the fact that he keeps going to Mar-a-Lago, and it's honestly a security concern at this point. I think that's fair. But if you keep talking about collusion or conspiracy during the election, it's just not a winning strategy. It's really dumb.
So one last thing, the obstruction charge. So obviously there's a lot of evidence against Trump. One, we could see it with the naked eye. Two, it's in the Mueller report. We know because Barr said, well, there was considerable evidence on both sides according to Mueller, but I decided that I'm not gonna charge him with obstruction. So if you're confused, and I get it, like wait, if there was no collusion during the election, why did he bother obstructing justice? That doesn't make any sense. Because Trump thought they were gonna look into his other dealings with the Russians. So he's obstructing like crazy, like, oh my God, Comey's gonna look into my ties with the Russians? I gotta fire him. Oh, this idiot Jeff Sessions, who was supposed to protect me personally, recused himself, and now there's a special counsel looking into my ties with the Russians. So that's why I keep coming back to his past financial ties, the money laundering, its potential money laundering, et cetera. He's got 63 Russian billionaires that have invested into his properties. They bought a third of Trump Tower as he's about to go bankrupt one last time. And this is telltale signs. So my point there is that Trump could have been obstructing on things that Mueller wasn't looking into. If Mueller had looked into the money laundering, Trump's toast, in my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. So that explains why Trump would want to obstruct the investigation if the so-called underlying crime didn't happen, which is collusion during the election. Because Trump thought, if they uncover the rest of it, I'm toast. So that's why it does make logical sense that Trump would do obstruction, because he thought that the investigation was going to be broader. So fascinating turn of events, obviously. Look, normally the last half hour of the show is just for members, but since this is massive breaking news, we will share this publicly with folks. If you want to get the last half hour of the Young Turks regularly, go to tyt.com/join. And you'll be able to get it every day, whether we're covering fun stories about our personal lives or important stories that are in the news. On the go, don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.